ask you to go live and let me know so we can then call the meeting to order.
Ready.
It is 4:06 p.m. and I am going to call to order our meeting. So Gwen, could you please take roll call?
Director Baker,
I'm here on Zoom.
Director Case,
Here.
Director Diaz,
I'm here on Zoom as well.
Director Foley,
Participating from the metaverse via Zoom.
Director Hamilton,
He is excused.
okay. Director Mendieta Ramos,
I'm here via Zoom.
Director Mays,
Here.
Director Olson,
Here.
Director Wilson.
Here via Zoom.
And are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, we are, Madam Chair. We are in compliance with the open meetings law.
Thank you. And this is our first back in person since I believe February of 2020. So we are testing out. If people who are on Zoom could mute their mics, thank you.
How may I help?
So we have our MATC staff who are here in person. Some will be joining us by Zoom, and I will call that as such, just so we know where we are asking someone to come in. So comments from the public. I do believe, Beth, that we have some. Is that correct?
Yes, we do have comments from the public. We are going to start with Johnny Munoz.
Okay, and he will be joining us via Zoom, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, I'm Zoom. I can start my speech.
Yep, I just would like to mention that, no person since we do have public comments, it's been a couple meetings since we've had that no person may speak more than once to any issue or for a period longer than 5 minutes, except upon the consent of majority of the board. And no more than 3 people may be here on the same side of an issue. And just as remember that the board is here to listen. So yes, Mr. Munez, you can begin now.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. And greetings to all. My name is Johnny Munoz, and I have been a part-time producer for the bilingual program Adelante in Milwaukee PBS since 2004. During these 17 years, I have been an independent producer, contributing to at least one story per program. I am here because I would like to continue producing stories for the program, informing and supporting the successful for the program Adelante in Milwaukee PBS. In the same way I have done from the beginning, since I started this program to air. Again, I was enjoying working in Adelante since 2004, and I have been my great pleasure to work in this Emmy Award-winning production. I love Milwaukee PBS mission to educate and inform, and Adelante is a great service for this Hispanic community. Since 2010, I haven't asking if there are a possibility to salary increase, but the answer I always was the no budget for our program. The last year, a position was open for a full-time bilingual producer reporter, which are the same job as I'm doing since 2004, and for which I was awarded several times, and I applied for this job. But for my surprise, I was not selected, even if I was the most qualified candidate for the position. Because of that, I decided to place a formal complaint asking for an investigation to be carried out regarding the recruitment process. In response to my request, MATC Human Resource let me know that I had the and obtain the worst score according to the report of the hire committee. Because I have done this job for more than 18 years, my conclusion is that the hire process was manipulated. A recruitment process is a pretending act since the candidate has been selected before the process starts. Starting for the first story I produced for Adelante, I never had any help in any aspect, much less in editing. I editing my own stories. On the contrary, I help some producers from other programs in editing when they are dealing with systems that are updated every year. Then the other bilingual Spanish CV engineer editor position was opened, lowering my position, and with the first application experience, I already knew that I was not going to be selected for this position. But even so, I applied for the position. On the interview day, I was so surprised when I see a person who doesn't know how to edit as a part of the hiring committee. I also noticed that another person who on numerous occasions asking to my help in editing was also on the committee. I don't understand why there are more producers in the committee than editors. One editor only and 3 producers were in the committee, including the newer hired producer who didn't know much familiarity with the show. And also, I don't understand why the producer from the show for who was from 23 years wasn't in the community. She has the experience of knowing what this show is about and what it needs. My complaints that is for the 18 years that I have making many stories for Adelante with the same payment, no counting that is a minimum amount, and according to the result of my complaint say that my complaint is not substantiated. And also my job was only the equivalent at 20% of the working as a regular full-time employer. The person who make this report doesn't not have any idea what it, and did not bother to investigate the nature of my work. A story need to be finished to go on air, will be part-time or full-time. And right now I'm stuck as a activity facilitator or casual worker. And I'm not even part-time employee. So I am not eligible for any benefits for 18 years, producing at least 1 story per program, or sometimes 2 up to 3 stories per program. In conclusion, I want to state that the recruitment process is manipulated. Selected candidates are not hired because of their experience and skills as talented, but because they are friends with the managers. There is evidence that Milwaukee PA's Vice President and General Manager, Mr. Bodan Zachary, has already met, approached, and directed the selected producer to apply for this position. I also want to say that an activity facilitator is a temporary worker. No person like me that I'm doing this job as a full-time employer for who has been producing at least one story for program and doing this for 18 years. I'm not a casual worker. And also the work that I do now has been assigned for 2 people. the job I was doing, 2 people are taken. They together are making a salary greater than $100,000 a year. And I want to mention that I am a MATC television production program alumnus. And the message that the administration is sending to MATC that the students from MATC are not good enough. And I have helped in Adelante from Milwaukee PBS, and I received many hours, including 7 nominations and 2 hours from the Chicago Regional Academy of Television of Art and Science. A national presentation and PBS News Hours of the first story about the family of undocumented parents. The first National Image Hour, National of the Golden Hour of Milwaukee Press, and another hour with the Wisconsin Broadcasting Association, and many more. Only for Adelante, but myself, I receive another hours from another station and for another production I do by myself. But the new person that I hired, I believe they don't have any hours. They don't have any more experience than me. I would like to say so much more. I have too much more things to say, but for the time that you are giving, I will not able to conclude almost all everything. I would like to send a copy of my speech all the members of the board. Carlos Aranda will be the person who is going to help me with this process. And thank you very much. If I have any, if you don't have any question, I'm happy for continuing for the next with my case.
Thank you, Mr. Munoz, for addressing the board and sharing your concerns. The board is not allowed to respond to any of the concerns tonight due to the open meetings law. So thank you for sharing with us your concerns. Beth, do we have anybody else for public comments?
Yes, we do. We have Sue Silverstein.
Okay. Ms. Silverstein, you can begin.
Sorry, my picture moved around, so I was looking for my mute button. Hi, my name is Sue Silverstein. I'm a welding instructor, lead faculty, and executive board member of AFT 212. I am retiring at the end of this week. When I was 5 years old, I would line up my stuffed animals and create lesson plans to teach them how to do math and read. Of course, I had to do all their work for them because they were stuffed animals after all. I came to MATC in the late 1970s as a student, so it's only fitting that I came here to teach my trade in 2008. I thought I would share with you some of the highlights from the welding department during my time here. Welding is being offered at 4 locations, and the welding diploma was revised into a block system in 2012. The Welding Technology Associate degree has the distinction of being the only associate degree in a technical college in the state able to provide students with the opportunity to do the AWS CRA-T robotic arc welding certification. Prior to COVID restrictions, we have had a national robotic arc welding conference held every other year at the South Campus with over 150 participants at every conference. We have a long history of offering start college classes, and we have dual enrollment in 2 of the sections at the South Campus. We put an emphasis on recruiting women 2 years ago. We now have female students in all of our programming, including start college, dual enrollment, the diploma, and the associate degree. This year, we made badges available to the start college students and the weekend college students. We offer a welding certificate to the Department of Correction participants. We conduct state of Wisconsin weld testing to the community, and we are offering bilingual classes as of this year. We recently completed the curriculum and the Blackboard shells for advanced metal fabrication, and we hope to offer that soon. I've also worked with the dual enrollment committee that has spent over a year working on policies and guidelines to help instructors and students be more successful. I have worked with MCT pathway advisors who've been a great asset to instructors and students in our pathway. I found it essential to be an active member and an executive board member of AFT 212. The union has been essential to my success as an instructor. As great as my experience have been in guiding students to be soon to be professional welders, not everything has been rosy lately. The name of the college has the word technical in it, but those of us in MCT feel the college has lost sight of the fact that our trades require hands-on face-to-face experiences. Our square peg program competencies are being forced into the round peg requirements that do not make our instructors or our students more accomplished as skilled tradespeople. The loss of our associate dean and the administrative assistant at the West Campus has been devastating to our department and has left me trying to do 3 people's jobs in addition to trying to prep and teach my classes. I read the book on the pathway design, and I don't feel the model has been followed as outlined in the book. We have been told that the pathway system would have these horizontal functioning entities that would help us, but we have never felt more stressed and overworked. Finally, I found it rather insulting to be told that we are using too much Zanzil. I have to say that the pay that I do receive as a lead faculty person has never come close to compensating me for the actual number of hours that I put in doing lead faculty duties. My next job will be to work for my veterinarian. And it strikes me that the possibility that I might get bit, scratched, or pecked stresses me less than continuing to work at MATC. I will miss my students and being an instructor, but it is time to move on. I want to thank you for allowing me this time to speak, and I would like to wish you all a safe and healthy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silverstein, and also thank you for your service to MATC, and good luck in your retirement, although it sounds like you have plans already for that. Beth, are there any other public comments?
I do not believe so.
Okay. And just as a reminder that the board does not respond to any matters that at the meeting due to the state of Wisconsin open meetings law, which prevents a governmental body from discussing any specific item that was not publicly noticed on the agenda. We will move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting on November 23rd. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Case. Are there any comments, suggestions, corrections? So it has been moved by Director Baker, second by Director Case. We will take a voice vote. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of November 23rd, 2021 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now moving on to the approval of the consent agenda items, which are listed on the agenda. Items A through E. May I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Director Wilson, is there a second?
Second that, Director Ramos.
Director Ramos has the second. Are there any questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items? Hearing or seeing none, we have a motion by Director Wilson and a second by Director Ramos to approve the consent agenda items as listed in the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Consent agenda items are approved. We are now moving on to the board action items. And our first item, we have Mr. John Meehan, who I believe is joining us via Zoom. But before we move into that resolution, can I ask for a motion for resolution F0209-12-21, authorizing the sale of the $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2021-2022G of Milwaukee Area Technical College?
This is Director Foley. I move approval of the resolution.
And this is Director Wilson. I second.
We have a motion. So Mr. Meehan.
Good evening. Thank you all very much for allowing me to participate via Zoom. I have provided to the college the sale results based on the direction which we received at the last board meeting to move forward with the $1.5 million Series 21-22G issue. We were pleased this morning that we received 6 bidders, which is the most that we've received for a while. A lot of familiar names showed up, which is great. I think it's because as we're rolling out closer to the end of the year, frankly, this is the last week from a bond perspective as far as new issuance. We don't see many issues coming next week at all. You have some folks showing up, trying to get the last purchases before the year is out, which is great. The winner is Fidelity Capital Markets as at a 0.63. You'll note as you go down the list of names, the last of the firms bidding, Collier Securities, they actually won last month. So stay tuned as the bids come and go. They came in last month at a 0.71. So the good news is that because of the fact that we are heading into the end of the year and that there is a lack of supply right now, we had some aggressive bids at a 6.3. Next page. As far as the notes themselves, the 1.5 million will be transferred to the college on January 6th. That's also the data date, which means that's when the interest clock starts. The maturities of principal is June 1 of 23 through 26, with the first interest payment June 1 of 22. And there are funds included in the levy that you've set back in October for payments during 2022. They're non-callable. The AA1 is confirmed. And as I mentioned, the true interest cost is at a 6.3, which is continuing to be low rates. Next page. We're at the halfway point. All the orange headed issues on the left side of the page are the sales that have been taking place are before you tonight. And the futures, the preliminary, very small wording, are the blue coverage as it goes off to the right. The average rate on this issue is to 2%, which is very similar. We're saying 2% coupon rates on the various issues as they have taken place earlier this year. We use an estimated rate of 4% for purposes of running the math. The good news is that we continue to be within the allotted budget amount for debt service payments during calendar year 2022, which is how you pay your debt service payments. The next page, please. The rating report is no different than the last series. It's the same wording. There's nothing new, nothing to share. On your agenda tonight is your 21 audit, which will be provided to Moody's Investor Service after you approve and accept the audit this evening. And I would expect that the next report for the next sale that takes place in January, there'll be a more lengthy write-up because they'll have new information to digest and share. I'm not concerned. I expect that they'll take it all in very positive note for the actions of MHEC. What I've just covered has been included in the resolution, which has been prepared by your bond counsel, Michael Friedrich. It is on the agenda this evening. I'll be happy, Madam Chair, to answer any questions that the board may have.
Are there any questions of any board members? I'm not seeing any or hearing any. So we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Wilson for Resolution F0209-1221, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2021-2022G. This will be a roll call vote. So Gwen, could you please take that roll call vote?
Certainly. Director Case.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
What I want to do is put up some lights for,
Director Wilson. Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
oh, forget it. Anyway. So Tanya's,
Director Wilson.
Director Wilson, are you able to hear?
I can hear, but nobody can hear me. I don't know what to do. Oh, wow.
Director Wilson, we can hear you. We are hearing some other conversations. So Gwen had asked for your vote on item 5A.
I said aye 3 times and I was trying to get, I don't know. Can you hear me? Aye.
We did hear you. Thank you. We're moving on to item 5B, which is resolution F0210-2110-12-21, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2021-2022H of Milwaukee Area Technical College. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval on the motion.
A second.
So Director Baker has made the motion, Director Case has a second. Are there any questions on this motion or resolution? This is standard, but I always want to make sure that people are allowed that opportunity to ask questions. Seeing or hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. There was a motion by Director Baker and Director Case for resolution F0210-12-21, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2021-22H. So Gwen, could you please take that roll call vote?
Sure. Director Diaz.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
And Director Olson.
Aye. We're moving on to item 5C, which is the resolution F0211-12-21 to approve the annual comprehensive financial report. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Director Mace and a second by Director Diaz. As a reminder, we will be taking a roll call vote, and per policy, we do need a two-thirds vote for this to approve. So, Mr. Hollow, I believe you're going to take this.
Yes, I would like to introduce Mr. Paul France. He's the partner of the audit firm Baker Tilly.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight, I'm happy to share the results of the audit process. And first, we'll focus on the annual comprehensive financial report. We received nothing but cooperation from management during the course of the audit. We found no material misstatements during the process that came to our attention. Therefore, we've issued an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean bill of health. This is the highest level of assurance that we can provide to you as your external auditor. What that tells you is that The financial statement document has all necessary accounting principles adopted and applied consistently year over year, that all necessary disclosures are made within that document. And again, when you hire an external auditor, this is the outcome that you're looking to hear. So with that, I'll pause and then I can pick up with the next audit process.
Are there any questions before we take a vote on item C? Again, this is the single annual comprehensive financial report. There are a couple other items beyond that that we will also hear from. Okay, so we had a motion by Director Mace and a second by Director Diaz for the resolution F0211-12-21 to approve the annual comprehensive financial report. This will be a roll call vote. So Gwen, could you please take that?
Yes. Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Wilson,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Case. Aye. Director Diaz,
Aye.
and Director Olson.
Aye. We will then move on to item D, which is the resolution F0212-12-21 to approve the single audit report. Do I have a motion for that resolution?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Wilson and second from Director Baker. I'm guessing we're gonna have some more conversation on that from our people from Baker and Tilly.
Yes, thank you. Similar to the financial audit, we received nothing but cooperation from management on the single audit. We've issued an unmodified opinion on both the federal and state grant programs for that audit. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were identified and or communicated. We did have one compliance finding related to some reporting requirements with the student financial aid cluster. We've been in discussion with management on how best to move forward with that and are confident that that concern will not carry forward moving into future audits. So with that, I'll pause again and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from any board members? Okay, that being said, we do have a motion by Director Wilson and a second by Director Baker for item D, the resolution F0212-12-21 to approve the single audit report. This will be a voice vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item E then is the F0213-12-21 to approve the auditor's communication to those charged with governance and management. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Dr. Foley, is there a second?
Second.
Director Mays, thank you. And back to you.
Thank you. This letter will have the pretty marketing cover that our folks at Baker Tilly got a hold of. This information in there talks about the audit process, the various responsibilities throughout the audit process, highlights some required communications that we need to have with you as the governing body. In there, it highlights any new accounting principles that were adopted during the course of the audit. It lists out various accounting estimates that we evaluated during the audit and were included in the financial statements that are referenced earlier. All estimates included in there were clear, neutral, and non-biased, meaning that they were appropriate to be within there. Ultimately, had there been any difficulties with management, we were required to report that in there. Truthfully, you would have heard about them long before a presentation tonight, and as I highlighted earlier, nothing but great things working with the folks at MATC. And so with that, I'll pause again if there's any questions, but otherwise it's just a privilege to work with everybody.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chair Olson, I just have one comment.
Sure.
I think there were not a lot of questions because it was delightful to see in the audit all of the positives, both in terms of communication, but also really in terms of our processes, and that our processes met all of the bars that were being set. And that the college is on, in very, very difficult times, still on very solid financial footing. So, obviously we appreciate the work of Baker Tilly, but it's also a testament to the fact that the college is well situated for moving forward. So thank you.
Mr. Howe?
Yes, I would like to recognize some people who worked on the audit and who did a fantastic job with the audit.
Sure.
First of all, our orchestrator of the audit was Eva Keither, our controller. She did a fantastic job keeping everything in place and organizing the entire audit. Mary Mathers, she's a senior accountant. Sue Jarvis, and she's also a senior accountant. Amelia Meinhardt, who is our budget manager, also played very important roles in the audit. The single audit, Brenda Schmidt, who's a grant accountant who orchestrates the single audit, she did a great job, along with, from financial aid, Jeannie Bynum, Al Pinkney, and Christine Zollicoffer. So all of them, they played the lead roles in making sure this audit process was smooth and consistent throughout.
Thank you, and thank you to all of those staff members you mentioned also. I would concur-
Chair,
Yes, Director.
Olson, I can't find where the hand raise thing is. Anyway, at some point when things get better, it'd be nice if they could come on Zoom or something so we could see them and say thank you in person. And they may be listening, I'm not sure.
Sure. Yes, thank you. Yes. I would concur with Director Baker about that. And I do feel like even the one item that was mentioned, the only one item, I feel like as a board member, we were informed of that along the way. So that was not even a surprise to me to see that one item listed in the areas that needs to be worked on. So again, thank you to all of those staff members who worked very hard on that. That being said, we do have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays to approve item E, resolution F0213-12-21 to approve the auditor's communication to those charged with governance and management. This will be a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We're moving on to item F, which is resolution F0214-1221 to revise the fiscal year 2021-2022 renovation remodeling capital projects. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Director Foley, I approve or move to approve, or second if someone has beat me to it.
Yeah, they have, and so I will take your second, Director Foley. Director Case beat you to that motion. So we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to call on Janice to explain this a little bit.
Yeah, so this is one of our typical items we bring to the board. We are shifting some capital dollars from a project that came in under budget.
Wait, Janice, we can't hear you. People are.
Do I have to come up there?
I think with the microphones, it would be best if you could come up.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on over there.
Remember, we'll talk about
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is a normal matter that comes before the board when we are shifting some of our capital dollars from one. We did come under budget on one of our projects by $400,000, and we're going to be shifting those dollars to renovate an anatomy and physiology lab at the Mequon campus. So certainly, I guess I should be looking this way too. So.
We're not all quite sure where we're
Yeah.
looking. So it's all good.
Yeah, spin around and do twirl. So, any questions?
Good that we're under budget and able to allocate those toward another project. So that is good news from that part of it. I don't believe I am seeing any or hearing any or virtual or real hands being raised. So with that motion from Director Case and a second from Director Foley, I will move forward. This will be a voice vote. So all those in favor of moving this resolution forward, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. We are ready to move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is the policy approval. And so if you remember, this was discussed about last meeting. So before we move into discussion, I will take a motion for approval for this handbook policy change.
This is Director Foley, I move approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Gates, thank you. Is there any discussion, questions on the policy approval from the handbook policy around a flexible work arrangement?
Yes, I have a question, comment.
Sure, Director Baker.
So I'm extremely excited to see this. I was excited to see it on our agenda last time. I think it's very important that we codify our work arrangements that have sort of grown through the course of people working through the pandemic. And I know that there's a lot of work that has gone into this. However, if you take a look at the policy at the very end of the document we were given, there's a parenthetical statement that says hyperlink to the policy and the administrative procedure, which I inquired to staff, and I was told that that still needs to be worked out. And while I appreciate that there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing here that is difficult, as a board, I really think it's very difficult to approve a policy like this, where we're essentially saying that we're approving a general concept that people who are in the same workspace may be engaged in work differently, and yet we don't know how that's going to be determined. And so that's what gives me pause. I love the concept. I love the general, I love what's written here, but I feel uncomfortable approving it at this point without knowing procedurally, pretty much it tells us that, an individual will make an application in their department, then have a conversation with their department chair or the manager within their supervisor within their department. And being particularly sensitive to issues that we are facing as a college, I think more than ever, we as a board need to be very cognizant of equity in all of our HR decisions. And I think having a good understanding of what our procedures will be in this will be to our benefit and the college's benefit. And just to say, I totally trust the administration working on this. It's not that I don't trust anybody. I just feel that as a board member, I would feel much more comfortable approving this if I also understood procedurally how it was going to work. So I would be voting no on this at this time, unless we would like to put it off.
Question. Is there any reason why excuse me, is there any reason why it's not a part of the motion? And if there isn't a reason, why are we talking about it? I'm confused.
When you mean, if what is part of what motion?
Why? Okay. What we have here is a policy that says go somewhere and click on something, right? Okay, where's the process for the policy, since nobody seems to know what I'm talking about? Where is the process for the policy?
So Director Wilson, are you asking specifically about the link that is not there yet? Or I'm trying to clarify your question.
Okay, let's start here. What would be on the link? What will be on the link?
Thank you. That helps clarify. So Janice is going to come up. I do know we also have Michelle Wild, but we jumped into questions. So I want to make sure we give an opportunity maybe to respond to both of those or what we're looking at. So people will have plenty of time for questions. I'm not moving to take action here before people get their questions answered in that. So I'm going to let Janice respond to that.
So to answer, I think, Director Wilson's question, what you have before you, it would be considered the board policy in its entirety. So what you have as your attachment to your board agenda today is the policy that we are asking that the board consider and approve. This is the second read of this policy. We did have it for review last month. And so that's the issue before us. In the policy, there is a link to the procedure that underlies the policy. Many of our policies at the college, board policies, have a procedure that underlies our policies, and those are also all online, and those are developed as addition to explanation of the various processes we have at the college. So that's what the procedure would cover, and that has been worked on, and I'm sure I have to get used to calling Michelle by her new name. She just recently got married, so I'm just like, whoa, okay, her name is different. Congratulations on that. But we do have those procedures, and that has been worked on in tandem and is being reviewed at the Employee Handbook Committee, which is a cross-functional team across the college that reviews our employment policies and procedures. So
Janice, can I clarify just to make sure? So what we are seeing is the board policy and guidelines and procedures that get developed are not approved by the board, if I'm understanding that correctly?
Correct.
So the hyperlink that's being referenced at the end is procedures which the board does not typically approve?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So the board approves policy. The way that it gets delivered through the procedures, guidelines, and all of that is done at the administrative level. And so that part of it is not approved at the board level. So I think that's maybe what we're asking right here, that while we don't have the procedures developed, that those parts of it, the procedures themselves are not approved at the board level. The policy would. Director Baker, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm thinking, I heard you say was that unless you could see the procedures, you're not comfortable with the board policy, or that's what that is.
Let me clarify.
Yep.
Sure. So it is true, and actually in another life, I chaired the policy committee for a long time, and very often the board sees procedural and implementations guidelines when it also sees policies, but the board's job that's not our job. Our job is to approve policy. And our job is to oversee sort of the implementation of that in a very global sort of way. So my question is not that I need to approve the procedure. It's just that we are dealing with, I believe, an issue that is something that it would be I love beholden to, but it would be important for the board to understand the implementation, and that we know before we actually approve the policy that the district has the procedural matters in hand and can explain to us how this would happen, how these decisions would be made, so that we can comfortably approve this. I think this is really for the protection of the college, for the protection of the administration. This is a question of us knowing that something that, again, is going to be differentiating work assignments within a space, that we understand procedurally, particularly equity issues and how they will be handled, but just in general, how this will happen. And I'm very comfortable with the concept, but I think when the administration has been able to fully work out the procedural matters and explain those to us, then I'll be very comfortable approving it as a board member.
Thank you. Director Wilson, was your question answered?
No, ma'am. First of all, when I said procedure, nobody understood it. Now the only word floating around is procedure. That's okay. That's a separate subject. I think that the problem is I wasn't at the last meeting when this was discussed. That's part of it. The second part is I'm trying to understand how this is going. The staff is going to develop it. How does this process work to get to the policy? I'm not talking about, what I'm talking about is what's going to be at the end of the link. How is that going to be worked out? You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying?
Oh,
When I beg your pardon.
Interrupt, go ahead, finish.
Okay. When one of the individuals wants to go to the link to find out how they're going to work, when they want to decide which way they're going to work, is the supervisor going to see? This hasn't been developed, and that's why I don't know it, and I wasn't there. Who decides who gets to work where, when, and how?
So I think Ms. Wild can talk about the
Sure.
procedure because I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Congratulations, Ms. Wild. I'm sorry.
And so I believe the procedure has been developed. It is being reviewed through the Employee Handbook Committee at this time. So it's not that it has not been developed. It has not been brought to this board because, again, the board approves policy and not administrative procedure. So I think and we have many administrative procedures on our website that underlie board policy. So I don't know.
I get it. Okay. But right now we're in a different area and mode right now. The things aren't as well as they have been, and I don't think any of us would deny that. So for this policy, I'm not talking, I know we got plenty of them. For this particular policy, there's no way we could see a draft. I mean, I'm not trying to write a policy because I don't know how, but I really would like to be able to see this policy. Or I have this question: if anything comes up, about this policy not being used in the right way, and I know nobody would do that, but there's always a chance. Who does it come to? It doesn't come to the board. It becomes the administrator's issue, right?
Correct. So you do have the policy in front of you tonight. That is the policy. So what is attached to the board agenda is the policy.
The policy. Oh,
That
okay.
is the policy. There is a procedure underlying that policy, and perhaps we can have Michelle just speak to that a bit and let you know where we're at with that development and the training plan that's going to be going alongside the implementation. So that might help alleviate some of the concerns about how we're going to implement and hold people accountable and deal with the complaints and all of that potentially. So go ahead, Michelle. You're on mute, I believe.
Sorry, I hit my secondary mute. So I do just want to clarify that there is a policy which you have seen and you're talking about this evening. There's also an established procedure that has already been looked at by the Handbook Committee. So at this point, the procedure is ready to go as soon as the board approves the policy. And in addition to that, there is an application that was designed. So all three things were created in tandem to work together to support the rollout or implementation of this once approved. And speaking to or just building upon what Janice pointed out, in addition to that, we have built out a rollout plan, which includes the communication and training of our employees on how to use these new tools, as well as our managers. So there's a targeted training for supervisors specifically on what they need to be doing, including equity issues and how we implement this consistently and how we make sure that there is an equitable process in place following the procedure, which was designed with equity in mind. And also so employees understand as well. So the procedure itself does speak to the application. And as part of the application, we do have an application period, which is established in the procedure where employees have a 2-week window of time where they apply with their supervisor with an established application of what they're applying for in terms of the flexible work arrangement they're requesting. And then at the end of that, the manager then has all of the employee applications so they can see what is it that's being requested, and they can look at how that fits with meeting college departmental student needs, because we want to make sure that's part of it as well. We can't just approve anything. We have to make sure that our business needs are met. So that application and that application period is really designed to give that opportunity for people who are interested to apply. And then when the manager is looking through the applications in the procedure, it identifies things that they should be looking at when they are making the decision on whether or not the flexible work arrangement can be approved. In the event that it cannot be approved the way that the employee is requesting it, in the procedure, we are directing managers to have a conversation and talk about what options might work so that we're not just discounting everything. We're trying to include the employee in the process because we know sometimes it's not going to work exactly the way they request, but maybe there's another tweak we can make to it that'll make it work. The procedure then does have a required communication in writing. So essentially the manager is going to complete the bottom portion of the application that says this is approved or denied. If it is denied, there is a reason that needs to be put in there. And we've put even examples of what acceptable reasons might be for denying an application. So there's some standards there as well. And then from there, the employee and the manager create a flexible work plan that really determines the expectations so they're both on the same page about how to be successful in whatever arrangement that they have agreed to for the semester. So again, it does have a lot of detail in it. That was a very high level overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have that again would help you better understand how the three pieces, the procedure, the policy, and the application work together.
Great. May I follow up?
Yes, Director Baker.
Thanks. I appreciate that explanation. So I need to clarify though, because I had a conversation with Vice President Falkenberg earlier and was led to believe that this had not yet been vetted by the handbook committee. Now you're saying this actually has now been, so the handbook committee in the college that meets with, I don't know, different college community folks have vetted this and approved this. And the only reason it wasn't sent to us is that people didn't think we were concerned with it. We were just concerned with the high level policy aspect of it. So you're saying it has been vetted through the committee?
I can speak to the first part of your question, which is yes, it has gone to the handbook committee. I can pull up the exact date if you need it, but yes, there was a meeting where the handbook committee got to see it, got to give feedback on it, got to discuss any concerns. CampusWorks was also present. CampusWorks was the consultant we worked with to develop this. So they were also there in that session with them. So again, if you need to know the specific date, I can look that up. But yes, that did happen already. So that procedure is all set to go.
Okay, that was not the information I was given a couple of hours ago.
And again, I haven't been as directly involved in this, so if that has been the case, I feel a little off kilter here myself. So I will, I defer to Human Resources. We did have a meeting that I had to leave early of the handbook committee a couple of weeks ago. So again, VP Bonds is out ill this evening, and I can't speak to it specifically because I was not there.
That's fine. And if I could just one more follow up, I really think since this exists, and I do have the concerns that I have, and I appreciate your explanation. So I think that it's easy enough for the board to have an opportunity to take a look at this since it's been approved and this by your internal operations. And so I'm asking the board chair, could we postpone our vote on this till next month so the board can, or at least myself as a board member, can have some comfort in taking a look at the implementation of this to see how we'll be doing that, and then we can approve it in January. And I'm willing to, if you'd like this tabled or set aside or whatever until that point, I'd be willing to make that motion.
Sure. A couple things, because I do want to get other input from, I've not heard from some of the directors on this, so I do want to get some of the input, but I guess one of the questions I would have initially is there any concerns if it was delayed by a month as far as approval of that in implementing it, or what would be concerns if we delayed any action until January? Michelle, that might be addressed to you, I'm not sure.
I actually just got, so I just wanted to correct something. Apparently I am under a different interpretation, so I want to correct something that I said. So the handbook committee has received it, but they have not vetted, like agreed to it or vetted it is the word it says. So I apologize if I provided incorrect information. I was under a different, but yes, the clarification is that the handbook committee has received it. And if you could repeat the question.
Sure. So I guess that does change it, but I'm still going to ask the question is that if there would be a delay on approval of the policy, what implications could that have if it was waited until January until we took action? Is there a delay in any implementation or yeah, what impact would it have?
Yes, I imagine it would delay the implementation. We have, as I mentioned earlier, there's an application period and things. So, I mean, everything that we built timeline wise was based on it getting approved. So there, I imagine would be some delay, but if that was the case, we'd have to work within that.
So so there's a delay. What would be the implication of the delay?
I guess I don't know how to answer that. Right now, we have employees who are still working with flexible arrangements as a result of the pandemic, and the direction that we're giving in the training is that those agreements, or maybe they're not in writing, but whatever arrangements they have in place will continue until this new procedure and policy is in place. So in terms of impact, I mean, there are some populations or employee populations who don't have flexible options right now under the established practice that do receive some under the handbook policy. So I guess for them, it would delay their ability to utilize some of these options, but that's the biggest impact I can think of. Certainly, other members of the cabinet have seen this. So if you have a different perspective or additional perspective, please do share. But again, that's the biggest thing I can think of is there are some that get some flexible work arrangement options that they don't have right now as established in this new policy and procedure.
Laura does have a response to that. I'm going to let her.
One of the things in our conversations at the cabinet has been that it is an extremely competitive environment for hiring. And so one of the things we've talked about is how do we, in this policy, as other employers are looking to this, there was a couple of people on my team that left, and one of the things that they cited was that this was not confirmed. And so I think that that's just something to note.
And that actually was what I was looking for. If we delayed this till January, what potential impact could that have? And I know that I'm not asking you to give me, that is what I was looking for. Like this could have an impact on people may choose to, I guess I don't have exact metrics there. I'm just looking for like, if it doesn't matter, because sometimes it doesn't matter if you delay a policy, honestly. Dr. Martin.
Well, I'd just like to add to that is that L. Bonds did say that every single applicant asked this question. Do you have this kind of policy in place? And what it would do is probably delay their thoughts about, or if they're considering another employer, they may say, well, I know they do for sure. I want to make sure that this institution will have it as well. And so that just delays that piece as well. And then I think Laura mentioned retention of employees. They're looking for this sort of arrangement if they don't currently have it.
Okay.
So
Director Case, yep.
Clarifying question. So some employees do not have an option of using this right now. And if you don't approve it tonight, that will delay them being able to take advantage of this.
Michelle's the best for that.
Michelle, can you answer that?
Yes, that is correct. There are some employee groups specifically who do not have options to do any type of remote work right now. And the policy and procedure right now as written would allow them some flexibility with that moving forward.
I've not heard from everybody and would like to hear some input from some of the other directors right now. And then we'll come back to people who have some follow-up after we listen to that. So Director Diaz, I see you on the screen right now as I'm looking through plexiglass here. So I'm going to see if you have any questions, if you're good, clarifications, or any thoughts on
it. I do, and thank you for allowing me to just ask a question, and I'd like to keep my opinion on the overall policy. I think it's a great, I mean, the policy, I'm all for it, but I also think it's very important that, the handbook committee really can have an opportunity to fully be on board with this, because I think this is, everybody needs to be, I mean, the buy-in on the whole policy and the procedure and the way it's gonna be put together. I think that would need to happen. And I understand the other side where some people would like to take advantage of this policy now. They need it now,
No,
right?
listen, Ms. K.
And
No.
we've been working without this policy all this time, I guess, right? So now we needed to implement it to keep that flexibility for people, retain people. That also is understandable. I think this policy is going to fix a lot of that. On the other hand, I think everybody needs to be on board with this, right? Or at least the handbook committee have fully, you know, put their blessing on this one, 100%. That would be like my thought. The handbook committee, everybody involved on that, give it their blessing, and I guess, I mean, it's a good policy from my perspective after that.
What I believe so you would be in favor of delaying the action item until January then?
I would like to address this. It's very important for people to take advantage of this policy now. I'll say that. But it's also very important to have the buy-in of everybody, because if the committee, the handbook committee, haven't really fully reviewed this or have their opportunity to say how it's going to be implemented, they also have, you know, they are also important to me too. I guess, you know, everybody is, and the policy is gonna have to be implemented. I would assume, and the sooner the better. I'm all for that, but also everybody needs to have the buy-in into it. I guess. I mean, is that, am I understanding it right? Am I understanding that part of the handbook committee not fully review that yet?
I'll have Janice, I'll let Janice explain that and see if you have some questions after that.
So the policy that is before the board has been fully vetted with the handbook committee. It is something that was brought there. They did review it. There was consensus that this was the right approach. Again, the underlying procedure, I think, is what is at issue. And again, that has been fully developed. The handbook committee has seen it. We haven't fully, my understanding, the last time I was at the handbook committee, and again, I had to leave early, so because I had another commitment. I don't know how that conversation ended. So again, I think there could be some more vetting perhaps that would happen there. But for the most part, the policy was completely vetted. That is before the board tonight to approve. So I just want to make sure we have that clarification. Some of the implementation pieces, as Michelle described, has all been presented there to that group. They did not, we sent it out. My understanding is there has been no changes suggested through email. So again, that's where I know that it's ended.
So hopefully, Director Diaz, that makes sense to you, that the committee has actually vetted the policy in front of you. They are now working on the procedures, which would not come directly in front of the board for approval, but they are working through the procedures. But the committee has vetted through what you see in front of you. Does that help clarify?
Yes, I guess that helped to clarify it, because, you know, for what I understood from Director Baker is that they haven't had their opportunity to really review it and give it the full blessing, or at least a chance to, you know, get a feedback from it or things like that, right? But I guess that kind of answers my question up to that point. I guess it's more of a question of the procedure side of things, right? And that part, I guess, the committee has not done, but they have looked at the policy, but they haven't had agree on the procedure on the handbook, for the handbook committee on the procedure. Is that what it is?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. In that case, I don't know. I mean, it's not like we're not going to implement this policy. Would that, it would be okay to delay it until next month? Would that, the repercussions for that are going to be significantly higher for the institution? Or, I mean, because I would like to see everybody kind of together and involved with this. I don't know if I'm understanding it right.
Director Case.
So just to clarify, if we approve the policy tonight, the handbook committee will still continue to meet and finish and vet and agree upon the procedure, right?
Correct.
Whereas if we do not approve the policy, they can do that, but nobody can implement it until after January.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So us approving tonight does not stop any of the continued work that will happen. And if something were to come up where the procedure is not agreed to, it wouldn't be implemented until that process is done. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I just wanted to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Our role, as from what I understand, our role on the board is to approve a policy. I don't believe, how I understood is we're not supposed to, our role is not to dig into how is this going to be done? How is this going to be implemented? I think that our role is to approve overall, this is the policy. I mean, then we let it go at that point, and then we have this other group that actually does the actual implementation, develop the process, develop the procedures. Our role is to just review the policy. Does it make sense for the organization, for the school? And then we leave it at that. And I that's my understanding of our role.
That's correct.
We're not supposed to dig in and approve every single detail. It's not our role to do that. So I guess I'm struggling with what the issue is here. So.
This is Director Foley. May I speak?
Yes, please.
This is Director Foley. May I speak?
Yes, please.
I think Director Case and I think that was Director Mays have hit it all on the head here. This is not a request to approve the procedures. We don't have authority to approve the procedures. We have authority and a request to approve or not approve the policy. We should act on that today. Second, I think that even if there were a reason for us to wait for those procedures to be put in place, and I don't think I've heard one, I think it would be a mistake. The situation in the labor market right now is terrible in terms of employers being able to identify and hire people or to retain the people they have. And I think that we do not want to wait and see how many people we lose between now and the third or fourth week of January. So I would recommend voting on the policy today and encouraging everyone involved to get the procedures done and approved as quickly as possible. But I also want, this is a rhetorical question, I don't need an answer, but why hasn't that happened is part of what concerns me here. Does this handbook committee not have the sense of urgency that other parts of the institution have with regard to getting this done? If they don't, they should understand that this is something that needs to get done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. We have not yet heard from Director Armento Ramos. Is she on there yet? I think she's on phone, so I can't tell.
Yes, I am right here. Well, I agree. I think that we shouldn't be delaying on the approval of this policy. Our job, as mentioned before, it is not to micromanage everything that goes on. So I don't think that we should be too concerned with anything beyond approving this. And like Director Foley said, the way the market is right now, if we delay this, even though the holidays are on the way, we might risk hiring candidates and filling out positions that need to be filled. So those are my 2 cents.
Okay, I think everybody has spoken at least once. If there's anybody who would like follow-up or clarification after that, I would like to, I'll allow that opportunity.
Thank you.
Director
Would you like to say something, Chair? You haven't said anything. I'll wait for you.
Sure, thank you. I would agree that our job is to approve the policy, and I do believe that what I've heard tonight is that there is a structure with a handbook committee. And Michelle, can you share with me who that other group that is also helping you with that, develop that?
Are you talking about Campus Works, the third? Yeah, Campus Works.
We have a third party, so I do feel like with having that expertise outside of it, having people internally approve it and look at that, I do think that procedure for developing the procedures is, I'm feeling comfortable with that. And I think that's really what I needed to know, that's there. And I agree with Director Mays, our job is to not micromanage that process and how that is. Confirming that there is a process and how it works was helpful to know, but that's the work of other folks and not of us at the board. So I also would not want to be standing in the way of delaying any of that work moving forward. So we couldn't then, from an employment standpoint, move forward or risk losing people who are here who would like to have this option that currently are not afforded to, because that's how we left the pandemic. So I feel like it could be reversed by saying, like, why are not all groups allowed to? This might provide more equity by getting this in place. So that's where I am. So thank you, Director Wilson, for allowing me that opportunity and reminding me that. So did you then, Director Wilson, want to follow up?
Yes.
And you turned your mic off.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The Department of Human Resources, in conjunction with the President and the Cabinet, reserve the right to recommend revisions to or eliminate this policy to the board. If this isn't that important, then why are we even talking about it? Number one. Number two, I'm not trying to micromanage. Number three, the college is at a critical point. Every policy I don't give the same weight. Now, one day this may come back to bite you if you don't be careful. I am telling you, I see it now, because there are times, and I really, you know what, I don't want to bring this up now because Director Foley, you and a few other people know the concerns of the college right now. I just see this as a way for some people to do some things that may or may not be right. And I would just like to know how many people are we going to lose, because I thought we were in the holiday season. And I didn't know that there was this crowd of people standing around to apply to get hired or to not to leave over the holiday. I didn't know that, so I'm going to apologize, because I thought we closed down for a while. So I apologize for that. But I am concerned about this. I'm going to abstain because I'm concerned that we need to hold this off. I don't understand how we have 4 weeks or 5 weeks and 2 or 3 of them are vacation. So it's not like we're talking 7 weeks or something, but if people want to vote for it, fine. I'm concerned, and I just don't want to start talking about all of my concerns for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Baker.
Yeah, let me just follow up since I started this. And I appreciate and actually agree with a lot of things my colleagues have said. As when I started this conversation, I said, spent time chairing the policy committee on this board, and I'm very much aware that that is our job. But I also feel that our job is to look closely at policies and understand their implications, particularly ones with an equity lens that even from what I heard tonight, and thank you so much, Ms. Wild, for your presentation. And I apologize, Janice and Ms. Wild, Vice President Falkenberg, if I put anyone on the spot with that, not my intention. But I haven't heard, how does someone appeal if they don't like the decision that was made? And again, it's not my job to dig into all of those things. What I want to know is all of those things have been settled, and that working with a third party and working with the handbook committee, that you've come to agreement on them. We don't need to approve those things. I just need to know that those things are in place and everybody feels that those things are going to work well. I'm cool with that. Policy goes. It's great. Without that, I have these reservations, which I have, I think, sort of spoken enough on this evening. But I totally agree with my colleagues. Not my job to figure those procedural things out. I do believe it's my job to know that fairness, that those things have been worked out in our college community. So that's where I will end this. And I think we're probably all
Okay, anybody else that would like to share at this point before because we do have a motion and a second. And honestly, yeah.
Can I just add something? And I just wanted to say that, and maybe comes from my perspective of being a manager, is like, usually I always go for, let's get the buy-in on everybody before everything kind of rolls out, right? Everybody needs to be 100% and nothing really not 100% clear. And that was my whole point, that's what I mentioned that. And not, like I said before, and I started with that policy needs to be implemented. And if we was holding, if it was making us lose people, and I mean, why we didn't do it before, I can say that too. But I mean, that was my whole point, why I was questioning that. And I understand the part that we don't really vote on procedures or anything like that. But the buy-in for me was, it's always on top of my mind. Thank you for giving me the time.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. And as we work through that, I think that people have been able to either work through where they're at or understand where they're at. And honestly, Gwen, because it's been that long, can you remind me who made the motion in the second? Sorry.
Sure. Director Foley made the motion.
Okay.
And Director Case.
Okay, I thought that was my right one. I got mixed up in there. So thank you. So am I able to call for a roll call vote compared to voice vote? Because I just want to make sure, based on this, where we're hearing and because we're getting competing responses, I just want to make sure. So I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this, even though that's not required by that, just to make sure that we are recording this as it is. So we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Case to approve the handbook policy as presented, the flexible work arrangement. So Gwen, could you please take a roll call vote?
Sure. Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
Abstain.
Director Baker.
No.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
No.
Director Foley.
Aye.
And Director Olson.
Aye. I believe motion carries.
Five yes.
Motion carries. So motion does carry. The policy was approved. Thank you. And thank you for everybody sharing your thoughts and questions and working through that. We will now move on to item 7, which is reports. And the first is the chairperson's report, which is me. I should put on my glasses here. I shouldn't do that. So on behalf of the board, our sincere congratulations to the more than 400 2021 winter commencement graduates. And several of us will be attending that commencement from those of us on site. It's just across the street in a different venue for us this year at Fiserv Forum. So that is on this Friday, December 17th. So that will be exciting. I know many of you on the board, this is a highlighted. It is the reason that we celebrate students graduating. There's a lot of things to celebrate, but that is a momentous occasion that is always great to be able to celebrate. So we would like to congratulate those graduates and their families. If you are not able to attend the commencement in person, our own Channel 10 will be airing the winter commencement on Sunday, December 26th at 11 a.m. Those of you who have been on the board before, we have held what we've called retreats. We are calling those special meetings at this point, just to clarify what a retreat is. I think some of in our minds have think differently about a retreat. So in February, there was a poll that was sent out around that. So based on that result, and we did know that we would not get 100% on any one given date, we did get a large majority on Thursday, February 3rd from noon until 4. So I'm going to ask Beth to send out a meeting invite to at least reserve that on your calendars. More details to come. As we move into the new year, I did share a couple ideas for those priority topics we want to consider. So I want you to think about that, what that might be as far as a priority topic to focus on at that retreat. And now I am going to ask Director Case to give our MATC Foundation report.
Sure. So the MATC Foundation Board met on Thursday, December 2nd. The foundation board members are becoming more engaged in attending MATC events or community events as representatives of the MATC Foundation. At the meeting, board members reported on participating in recent events, which included on October 27th, board directors Vi Hawkins and Dave Megna attended the Barack Obama School of Career and Technical Education, Johnson Controls MATC partnership to relaunch the HVAC program at the high school. Board President Julie Ebert and Board Director Tracy Luber attended a Milwaukee Business Journal event co-sponsored by MATC on November 4th, entitled Creative Solutions for Workforce Shortages and Equity Gaps. The MATC Foundation Board Directors Jamie Berger, Susan Lubar, and Julie Ebert co-hosted a virtual fundraising event on November 16th, where a small group of local civic leaders heard directly from Dr. Martin and Laura Bray on college priorities and answered questions from the participants. A notable point of feedback from one participant in a post-event survey was the degree to which MATC leadership is continuing to focus on getting the word out. As a grant maker in this town for 25-ish years, I didn't hear from MATC very often. That has changed in the last few years, and I hope it is bearing fruit. You need to keep hammering at it. At this meeting, the board entered into a strategy session, sharpening your MATC toolkit to become a better ambassador. Board directors work to prepare their own personal elevator speech by answering this question: why do you give your time, expertise, and personal philanthropy to this organization when there are so many other worthy organizations out there? Also, a gentle reminder to district board members as you consider your year-end giving. One option is to support MATC students through a gift made to the MATC Foundation. If you have questions on how to make your gift, please contact Executive Director Laura Bray. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Case. We will now move on to the President's report with Dr. Martin.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair Olson. Good evening, board members, faculty, staff, and community. In partnership with Milwaukee, MATC held a gap year kickoff event on December 9th. We successfully welcomed 25 diverse individuals, ages 17 to 21, from various backgrounds into this exciting inaugural program, funded by the Dolman Company Foundation, Manpower Group, and WTC. Throughout this program, participant interns will have the opportunity to explore 14 MATC career paths alongside our instructors and see firsthand how those career paths translate into jobs available at employers within our area. Beginning January 20th, the interns will immerse themselves once a week for a 10-week intensive experience, followed by a year of monthly professional development experiences. MATC and Milwaukee are being responsive to a national trend of more students taking these gap years, which is up 240% over the last 10 years. Thanks to our VP, Laura Bray, local funders, and MATC's collaborative team who will help create this offering, including our Career Hub area, high school relations team, recruitment marketing, and our foundation. Later this evening, right across the hall in Cooley Auditorium, we will celebrate our nursing pinning. The student speaker is I'm Unique Triplet, a senior at MPS Rufus King International High School. Thanks to the MCube College Connections dual enrollment program, this student will be earning a college level nursing credential before she even finishes high school. Congratulations to her and all of our nursing candidates for graduation. As mentioned by Chair Olson, we are celebrating our winter graduates this Friday. In addition to several of our accomplished students, we are honored to have Denise Thomas as the keynote speaker. Ms. Thomas brings 19 years of experience with Fortune 500 companies, including PepsiCo, General Electric, and Miller Coors, to her work as the president and owner of the Effective Communication Coach, LLC. It's a consultancy focused on transforming emerging and existing professionals into extraordinary leaders by mastering the art of effective communication. That concludes my report. Best wishes to our winter graduates and happy holidays to all.
Thank you. And we have in person for our Student Senate report, Fong Nguyen.
Hi.
Welcome. Good to see you in person.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Director Olson, for introducing me. And thank you, Dr. Martin, member of MATC District Board and Administration. I'm happy to be here to represent district student government and the student body. So my name is Huang Wang. I'm the West Allis student studying liberal art and the president of West Allis Student Government. Sorry for my outfit. I'm pleased to report that Sga participation is increasing despite the pandemic continuing. So that's a good one. I'm hopeful that as the academy year continue, that the membership continue to grow and diverse the student voice within Sga. And to conclude MATC semester, MATC did an outstanding job of creating an engaging environment for students for our first fall semester, fully in person. This work had made this semester long. I'm looking forward to relaxing and celebrating the holiday with my family and friends. So even though my time at MATC is coming to an end, so I'm excited to see new student leaders continue to work and building student experience at MATC. I complete my goal at MATC, I think, and I'm transferring to UW-Milwaukee for my bachelor teacher in education, which is ESL, teaching ESL. So I want to thank everyone at MATC who have supported my journey for the last 3 years, I believe. I'd like to thank you for this time to speak with you and look forward with the new student board representative.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank
And I am also saying thank you for continuing your education to become a teacher. Obviously, that is very near and dear to my heart, so I appreciate that, and good luck to you in those endeavors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, by Ava Martinez-Palos, we will have our diversity, equity, and inclusion reports.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, everyone. I have a couple of updates for the board today, and I'll begin with highlighting a couple of updates related to our Men of Color initiative that is currently led by Dean Equan Burrows. And the Men of Color initiative currently has over 100 students, and to be exact, it is 101 men are currently participating in the program. Men of Color initiative at MATC is considered to be a high impact program, meaning that this is a cohort of men that attend regular programming throughout the year and are currently also in a mentoring program as well. For example, the year for the Men of Color initiative began with a welcome back luncheon and fellowship open. There has been several welcome sessions for new and current members of the Men of Color initiative. The 100 men also have weekly check-ins on Mondays with their mentors and also staff that currently coordinate the program. Also, there's a monthly service project and social activities to be able to not only create community, but also to be able to influence a sense of belonging for the particular men in the program. Also, some of the Men of Color attend the National Summit as well. So they are not only engaging within the MATC community, but they are also engaging outside of MATC with other men as well. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the Men of Color initiative is because this is a model of excellence for MATC. In the spring semester, I plan for the team to come to you and give you a lot more details in terms of what are the outcomes, are we closing equity gaps with this particular cohort? And I wanted to be able to just highlight a couple of things here today, because what we want to do, we want to make sure that we are learning from the current programs that exist at MATC in order to be able to evaluate whether or not we need to scale those up and also scale those up in a way that also target different populations at MATC. So just wanted to give you some quick highlights of the program. And again, we have 101 men currently in the program attending. And according to the team, the men that attend the program have better outcomes than the men who don't attend the program. They have a lot of data, a lot of information, and they will be happy to share that with you in the spring semester. The next item on the agenda, which is in the middle part, the middle section, the yellow highlighted area, is to tell you just a little bit about the affinity group leadership retreat that we hosted with 9 employee affinity groups at MATC, and that was hosted on December 7th. So we took about an hour and 15 minutes to not only do team building, but also really digging into a conversation about what does it mean to have a culture of inclusion at MATC. And I'd like to share a couple of the comments that the team shared with us in that meeting. So we also asked, what does it look like for you? What does it feel like for you? So as we are in our diversity, equity, and inclusion journey at MATC as an institution and as an individual, we also want to make sure that we incorporate the voices of those who are living the MATC culture currently. So again, we had 9 affinity groups involved in this process. And some of them say that a culture of inclusion feels like a safe space, a safe place and environment, a place where people are seen, heard, and respected, a welcoming place. People look like you in all ranks of the college, courageous and patient. The culture supports and includes groups to feel like a part of the community, talking about that sense of belonging and belongingness. Representation, a sense of identity and transparency. People invite you to be at the table where decisions happen. Continuous and rigorous engagement in hard conversations. An environment that focuses on our mission to make the difference in the community, accepting for all, truly collaborative decision-making, free from prejudice and discrimination, a culture of inclusion that is a community free of bias, microaggressions, and discrimination, that is also innovative and professional curiosity, open-minded, respect, real smiles, happy employees, diversity awareness, values unique contribution of every individual at the table, tangible actions being made to improve inclusiveness. When the people I see who look like me, unification around the MATC mission and values and vision, welcoming, everyone's voice is heard and valued, all voices are heard, equity among all, everyone brings their whole self to work, everyone takes turn and speaks the truth. Policies, if there's a policy on inclusion, it must be transparent. And I wanted to share some of these dimensions of what a culture of inclusion looks like, because it's important that to acknowledge the things that we are currently doing at MATC, which include a lot of these dimensions, but then also thinking about the vision of diversity, equity, and inclusion at MATC. The last thing that I'd like to share with you is related to the DI grant, is a WTCS Building Capacity for Equity grant, and we are currently in the grant cycle, so we have applied for another year. So we will continue sponsoring 25 to 30 programs for employees and faculty and administrators at MATC that are foundational and that are focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we will continue the work. We will wrap up this spring semester, and we hope that our grant gets renewed for next year. We've been working with the grants team, and we are anticipating having another full year of events, but then also we are looking forward to developing a cohort of inclusion champions at MATC for next academic year, and that's more to come. And I did say that that was my last update, but I do want to give you a quick update on something that happened to that at MATC and is related to a press release so today at 11:30 a.m. we had a newly formed coalition of employee affinity groups, 2 employee affinity groups, Local 212 and Local 587. They have formed a coalition, and at 11:30 a.m. they held a press release to read their joint statement on anti-racism at MATC. Most of us were present. There were around 30 individuals there, and the purpose of the gathering was for the coalition to not only read out their anti-racism statement, but also engage the MATC community. And they also provided a list of what an anti-racist institution must address in order to become an anti-racist college. And the next steps for MATC within the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is for us to present this to the cabinet on Monday's meeting, discuss, and we will definitely take this to the next level in making sure that it is also embedded throughout the work of the President's task force, and that we continue to have dialogue and collaboration in these aspects. I do have a copy of the statement. I did get a paper copy. Once I turn it into a PDF, I will have this available electronically. Those were my updates, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that report and for updates as of that. I do believe that board members have received that copy of that via email. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
We will now be moving on to the enrollment report by our interim VP of Enrollment Services, Sarah Adams.
So thank you and good evening, Chair Olson, members of the board and MATC community. If we can start the presentation. First, we wanted to present our current enrollment numbers, and as you know, we're moving into our spring semester. And currently, as of today, we're at 53.5% of our projection for spring. We're at 71.6% for enrollment overall for the academic year so far. Next slide. I always like to just present a little view of who our students are, who's actually registering. Currently, our current continuing students, as of right now, in comparison to last spring, we have 4,520. And our students that are new to MATC or students that are returning from an earlier term, we have 976 returning from an earlier term, and new to MATC, 801. And this is a little bit over our spring 2021 numbers. Okay. And just to give a little background, this had been asked for a little bit before. When we look at our FTE, where we achieved at as of December 12th, and for this semester, we're at 53.5%. Spring 2021 on December 12th, we were at 42%. And December 12th in 2020, we were actually at 51.1%. So we are at just a tad bit higher with the 53.5%.
Sarah, can I just clarify what that means on there before we move on to the next one? So it means that of the number of students who will ultimately be in spring semester, we are at registered right now, we're at that percentage?
Yes, that's where we're at registered as of right now in comparison to the projected goal.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we did have a couple of additional questions that were asked for this meeting. So we're going to start with Jeff, our VP of Finance, and Jeff is going to share the impact of the projected FTEs and budget strategies. And then I'll come back and give you some more of the enrollment strategies that we're working on.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Earlier in this fiscal year, prior to the opening up of the spring semester, we were pacing a bit behind budget. And I think we've addressed it briefly, but I think what I want to do is explain it a little bit more. We were pacing behind about 16% of the budget. Our budget, FTEs drive our revenue, and we have a budget this year of 8,800 FTEs. And last year we attained 8,022. So it's about a 9% increase in FTEs this year, and a large increase in revenue. And when we build in the revenue, we put expense with it. So we balance the budget, so to speak. And as I mentioned, at one point we were pacing 16% behind, which translated into a loss of $8 million in revenue if we were to continue that same rate throughout the year. Since we opened up the spring registration process, we've now closed that gap a bit. What we're, so we're actually, as of yesterday's, my report is as of yesterday, we're at like 100, we have 101% of where we were last year. But we still have a ways to go. But I just wanted to just let you know, when I talk about revenue and FTEs, 100 FTEs equals 570,000, roughly $570,000. So we've closed the gap just a bit, and right now we're pacing behind budget by about 9%, and that translates into anywhere between $4.5 million. But the hope is that we're going to close that. We also, when we were down 16% at the run rate of 16% behind, we put in that, like I said, it was $8 million gap that we could anticipate. So we got together, the President's Cabinet got together, and we had a 4-pronged approach to help close that gap. We were looking to for $2 million savings in a discretionary budget. Discretionary budget is anything other than wages and benefits. We had a $2 million allocation of her funds for lost revenue. We have $2 million. We had planned on a $2 million savings in positions. As people leave the college or retire, we would hold positions open, and that's been very successful, because if you think about a position, wages and benefits make up close to 90% of our total costs in Fund 1. And then also the other plan was to break that run rate of that 16% and get an incremental 350 FTEs, which is equal to $2 million. So that would have closed the $8 million gap. Now we're still not out of the woods. We're still quite a bit of ways to go. We're pacing on track to the FTEs. There's a great effort in a lot of areas to get these FTEs back. So what we need to do for the spring semester is, I did a calculation, we need 121% of the budget, or 4,556 FTEs for the spring semester. That compares to a plan of 3,765 FTEs. It's an incremental 791 FTEs to completely close the FTE gap and close the revenue gap. So I'll just pause, and I know, there's another thing, as we've talked about, as we get into the, we're going to meet again with the budget managers to talk about the savings that they have in place once we get through December. So we'll be halfway through the year, and in January we're going to work with the budget managers and look to see what they can come up with savings in their discretionary area. We also, in January, we've done this in the past, where Dr. Martin sends out a message to the college that we're gonna all spending has to be approved before anything moves forward. So that's been very beneficial, and it's helped us to balance the budget in the past couple of years. So I'll just pause if there's any questions or comments on what I had just mentioned.
Okay. So picking up from there, one thing we do is we meet almost every Monday. We call it an Enrollment Huddle, and that's a combination of our faculty are involved, our deans are involved, enrollment services involved, our retention area is involved. So everyone's involved, so we know exactly where we're at. We look at our numbers, we look at what strategies we're working on. We look to see where we can help each other, those kinds of things, to make sure that we're keeping an eye on enrollment. But several things that we're doing, and this is across the board. I mentioned the enrollment fund because these strategies are across the board. They're not just in student services, but they're also in the learning pillar. They're also in the retention area. They're also in marketing and in recruitment. And one of the things that we're doing is we're updating the creative content of our campaigns continuously, with a major update schedule for spring, and working on that to avoid what marketing is calling fatigue, ad fatigue. We're honing in on application numbers in recent weeks to ensure keeping the top of the enrollment funnel healthy, and reversed a small year-to-year gap in applications submitted. Continuing to direct resources to the advertising platforms that are performing better and generating better results for us. And specifically, we're doing fewer ads on Facebook and Instagram and more ads on Google and TikTok. We're contacting students. We did a leaver survey for some of our students that were here in the spring 2021, but did not register for the fall. We did a leaver survey with those students to see why were you not here? What happened? How can we help you? Those kinds of things. And from that, we received over 200 and some students that indicated to us whatever the reason were they were not here in this fall, they wanted to come back in the spring. So then we put the effort in to start contacting those students to see what we needed to do to help you get back to come for this spring. We're using the Hustle platform, which is a texting platform, and we're texting specific groups regarding specific things like students that have outstanding balances, our continuing students, our students that have pathway specific types of issues. Our pathways are doing specific outreach. They're doing case management, they're doing emails, they're doing robocalls, individual calls. All of these are specific by pathway. Our faculty are reaching out to students and they're informing them of some of our targeted program registration events, like we have rapid registration events, storm sessions. We have various things that are going on. So our faculty are making sure that our students are aware of that. We're having financial aid workshops because a lot of our students get mixed up in the financial aid process. They don't know exactly what it is they need to do, and that kind of stops them. So our financial aid office is going out and they're having workshops for those groups. We've had one on Saturdays where we're inviting those students in, whether they're new students, continuing students, to help, so we can help them complete the financial aid application. We're doing career sessions at specific CBO sites. We're doing recruitment sessions at specific CBO sites. We just had an open house and registration at our Walker Square. And in retention, they're doing a more deeper dive into elaborate into our retention plan, which details the assessment efforts we need to have, communication cycles, special populations, and looking at the equity gaps and working on that. And an example of one of the, we're looking at, of course, our SEM plan and making sure we put those strategies in place. And one of the strategies we did have on our SEM plan was to work closer with our CBO sites. And we have started to do that. We've met with some of our sites, we've invited them in, we've had conversations. We've had last week listening sessions with those sites. We're looking at actually placing some of our classes, some additional classes at the CBO sites, which would be beneficial to our students because they would not have to leave an atmosphere that they're comfortable with to begin their programs. And then we'll be, like I said, we'll be looking at putting some additional classes there, starting with certain specific sites, and then of course, moving out with others. And with all of these things, we're also looking at what's the return on investment. We have to look to see which of these items are working, how they're working. So we're making sure that we look at those things also. And those are some of the things that we're actually doing at this point to increase FTEs. Are there any specific questions?
No, I guess I did want to share with the board that we are working on making sure that the enrollment report is, so some of the changes that we're going to look forward to are having some consistent pieces on getting the student FTEs is one piece of it, but I think as a board, it's important to know, like, what's the impact? We know, I think as Mr. Hollow shared with us, that is our source of revenue, but it has a lot of pieces of it. So the student FTE count is important for us to monitor, but then it's also say, like, so what will that impact be and what are strategies we're doing for that? So I think we heard both of those pieces tonight. We'll continue to work on a consistent template so we get that data consistently in a format that we can visually also see and be able to analyze that from month to month, because I think it's important for us to look at it and monitor those pieces. So I appreciate adding those pieces there, because I think it's always the what that we've gotten we need to pay attention to as board members. So what, and what does that impact, since one of our goals is to oversee that whole budget process, and the student enrollment is really driving that, in addition to then what the strategies are for that. So I appreciate your being able to fill in those two pieces and look forward to having us create a standardized format from which we would present that on a monthly basis.
Yes, great, thank you.
Beth, thanks. And I think Mr. Hollow, you are next on the audit advisory report. Yes.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Can I go to the question?
Yes, you can. Yes, please. I'm sorry. I felt like I was in class and back in the teacher mode, and it was just sort of like, let you know. I know, it took me out of my element, so I appreciate that. So thank you. So Mr. Hollow, the audit advisory report, item F.
Okay. The Advisory Audit Committee of MATC met on Thursday, December 9th. All members were present. We addressed three primary topics: The first topic was the external audit update, which I'm not going to repeat because we heard earlier what happened there. The second topic was conflict of interest. Ms. Kristen Ducato, Assistant General Counsel at MATC, provided an update on the conflict of interest process Annually, late June, the conflict of interest disclosure forms are sent to administrative personnel along with their semi-annual administrative contracts. Employees are to disclose any both income and non-income producing activities outside of the college to determine whether any conflict of interest with the college exists. A total of 229 administrative contracts and conflict of interest disclosure forms were issued. A total of 120 or 52% were received. Of those received, 14 included disclosures and all were determined not to be conflicts. The college is exploring options to increase the return rate on the conflict of interest disclosure forms. Ms. Ducato will follow up with this committee on the process of distributing the forms along with the deadline date to submit the forms. The third topic was internal audit update. Mr. Brian Kubik, Manager of Internal Audit, provided updates on the following topics. Risk assessment. As METC transitioned to the guided pathways model, many changes in the organizational structure occurred. On the academic side, one of the most prominent was the elimination of the associate dean role. The responsibilities of the role were dispersed across many new positions. Questions and concerns have been raised regarding these responsibilities and whether they have all been assigned and or are being completed with this new model. The Division of Institutional Effectiveness has been tasked with reviewing this question and has asked internal audit to assist. In the framework of METC's continuous quality improvement cycle, plan, do, check, adjust, this review will be the check with recommendations coming for any noted gaps that will likely lead to adjust actions. Audit follow-up. Mr. Kubik indicated that no action plans have been completed since the August meeting. The college is currently at 9% completed and 91% past due or in progress. Share knowledge, the final topic. Mr. Kubik provided information about 2 initiatives underway. A renewed push to create a governance, risk, and compliance committee is underway. This group would provide oversight to a wide range of risk and compliant issues across the college. A large category under this risk matrix is environmental health and safety. A separate group is working to develop an oversight structure that will include subgroups addressing operations and academics. Current responsibility is decentralized, so there is no one person department accountable for validating and documenting requirements are met. Training is occurring, etc. Both projects aim to create structures to enable the college to meet these goals and others. Mr. Kubik also shared 2 items related to Advisory Audit Committee charter. One requirement is for the committee to complete an annual self-assessment. On a quarterly basis, Mr. Kubik shares a self-assessment document that notes the requirements and whether the committee is on pace to meet them. As of this meeting, there were no gaps noted. Finally, Mr. Kubik noted that requirement to periodically review the charter for any necessary changes. The last update of this charter occurred on November 2018. Members are asked to review the charter and be prepared at the next meeting to discuss any concerns. That's the end of the internal audit report. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Powell.
You're welcome.
Next is our Milwaukee PBS General Manager's Report with Bodan Zachary.
Good afternoon or evening.
It is evening.
Chair Olson, METC board members, Dr. Martin, staff, faculty, and community. This afternoon, I'll provide updates on the December fundraising drive, our English as second language collaboration with MATC, and some upcoming national attention on Milwaukee PBS and MATC. Several weeks ago, Milwaukee PBS was honored to serve as the virtual host for a 3-day event for local nonfiction filmmakers of color. The event was organized by Firelight Media, which is the nonprofit production company of acclaimed director Stanley Nelson, who is today's leading documentarian of the African American experience. With a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and PBS, an initiative called the Groundwork Regional Lab was launched with a goal of increasing the diversity of public media content in partnership with local stations and PBS national series. It was great having Milwaukee PBS represent our region. On December 2nd, the producers of Black Nouveau, Adelante, 1036, and I participated in a virtual meeting with 13 local filmmakers from Milwaukee selected by Firelight Media. By the end of the meeting, several of them were already pitching stories that we hope to showcase on our local programs in 2022. Speaking of Black Nouveau and Adelante, I'm happy to report that Johnson Controls has signed on for another year as underwriter for those shows. Turning to membership, there are 6 days left in our December on-air fundraising drive, and we are at 80% of our $300,000 goal for this December. We're also beginning to receive year-end gifts from donors, which I'll report on in greater detail next month. But I will share that it's really interesting that over in the last 3 days, we've received $95,000 in major donor and planned giving gifts, including $25,000 from a viewer who has watched us for over 15 years and until now had never donated even $1 to the station. A big nod to the development team for the work they are doing. On the education front, Milwaukee PBS and MATC have been working together to create short English as second language lessons for use on television and also for use on our websites and social media. Mariano Avila, Milwaukee PBS producer and reporter in Adelante, and Bara Omari, instructional chair of English as second language, are the producers and writers of the project. Dr. Valencia Brown, Dr. Nadine Gonzalez de Jesus, and I have shepherded this exciting project since this past summer. More on that soon. Last month, I told you about our film about the Wisconsin dairy industry, which is getting attention outside of our viewing region. WSAW is the CBS and Fox station in Wausau, and it aired the hour-long documentary without any commercial interruptions. The news director of WSAW is Bridget Fargden, and she wrote us, quote, "We got several emails, Facebook messages, calls, and social media comments from people who watched and really enjoyed the documentary. It was compelling and good video on a topic that hit home with so many of our viewers in North Central Wisconsin. Kudos to you and your team on a project that was a long time in the making." Continuing on that same documentary, the World Channel is now going to air the film on January 30th, providing national exposure on the topic, and Milwaukee PBS on PBS stations across the country. And the PBS NewsHour is going to air the story in a few weeks. We don't have the date yet. I will send you the link, obviously. And lastly, after you've come home Friday night from the MATC Winter Commencement Ceremony, I invite you to, if you're home by 8, turn on Channel 10 for the 90-minute Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra special that we produced. And that night is airing not only in Milwaukee, but across PBS stations across the whole country. And make sure to stay through all the end credits, because you're going to see both Milwaukee PBS and MATC recognized in the closing credits. From all of us at Milwaukee PBS, I wish you happy and safe holidays and a great new year. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to you for all of those wonderful things that are happening at Milwaukee PBS.
Thank you.
And I know that Rami is otherwise,
Director Baker.
oh, I'm sorry, Director Baker.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Dr. Zachary or for Mr. Zachary, and if you want, this is something you can put in your report like next time. As I was getting more accustomed and looking at what we're doing in public television, it appears we're doing a lot less local shows than we did the last time I was more tuned in. And again, I don't need a whole thing tonight. I want you, if you want to sort of show us a little more about why we did that, what the reasoning was, sort of the direction on that.
I'll be happy to do that. But I'll just say that we're doing actually more local production.
Oh.
Yeah, Black Nouveau, Adelante, and 1036 are our main shows.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that catch, Beth. I know Ramy is not with us, but I'm going to call on Janice right now to do our legislative matters report.
Good evening again. We did provide a written report for the board this evening. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at that. I'm just going to highlight a couple of new pieces of legislation that have been introduced since our last meeting. That is kind of 3/4 down the page, Wisconsin Assembly Bill 687, Senate Bill 660. It was introduced to restore collective bargaining for employees of technical college districts and other employees and employers in the public sector. So that has been introduced. That is a Democratic sponsored bill. Wisconsin Assembly Bill 735 relating to free speech and academic freedom at technical colleges. This is a Republican bill. There was an assembly hearing last week on this particular action, and Senate action is pending as well. So this is proceeding forward. And then Assembly Bill 741, that is relating to tuition and fees at UW institutions and technical colleges to help remit some tuition and be refunded if there is a vaccine mandate that is required for participation in enrollment. So obviously this would not affect us. We have not instituted a vaccine mandate as of yet. On the second page of the report, the Assembly Speaker's Task Force on Racial Disparities has come forward with some recommendations that you may be interested in reading them. Many of these also have been instituted at MATC, and some of the things that we're already doing at the college here to encourage and facilitate completion of FAFSA. Also creating incentives for high school teachers to obtain credentials to tech concurrent enrollment courses. So a number of these recommendations are set forward here, but no action has been taken yet. They are just merely recommendations at this point. And then lastly, again, you've seen a lot of information in the news about the redistricting. Obviously, this process is still ongoing. There's been also a lot of news about the election review, and one of the Republicans did call for ending that election review yesterday, and it was in the news this morning. So that's also there for your information. On the federal front, Build Back Better Act is still pending in Congress, and the Senate action is pending at this point. And Ramy did add at the bottom of the report this month that a number of our Assembly and Senate representatives are probably going to be retiring and leaving the state government. So she's just added a list there to just keep people aware of what's happening at that level. So any questions for me tonight? Okay, thank you. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, which is board monitoring, which is our pathway presentation on dual enrollment. And I believe that Jonathan Fell will be joining us via Zoom, and there he is.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that works. Dr. Dakwar, want to give you the opportunity to say a few words if you'd like to before I start.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks, Chairperson. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to let the board know that our presentation has been shared with you, and I will offer some brief highlights, and then Jonathan and I will be happy to address any questions that you may have. So just very briefly, first off, I'm happy to let you know that we're graduating our first MPS dual enrollment students. In fact, we have 2 of them. And as Dr. Martin mentioned, we have the pinning ceremony going on this evening in about an hour or so, or less than an hour, actually. And the student speaker, Monique Triplet, in the PN program is in that ceremony. So we're really, really proud of that. As far as the highlights on the dual enrollments, I'd like you to know that we have a fully dedicated team. We have 65 high school faculty, 25 plus METC faculty. We have 20 METC faculty liaisons working with high schools within our district to meet the needs of dual enrollments and so on. 20% annual growth for about 9 years straight. And then there was the COVID disruption, And I think we're back on track, and we have the enrollments that we can share with you, and we have a comparison between pre-COVID and post-COVID. Also, we're serving over 1,700 students. Those are unique students. And I'm happy to let you know that we have increased in minority student participation. We went from 40% to 50% over the past, I think, 4 or 5 years. As far as a university transfer, 22 to 25% of our students transfer annually. You can think of this as anywhere between 1/5 to 1/4 of our students are on a transfer track. We have 40 colleges and universities as partners, and that gives us about 400 transfer and articulation agreements with them. We continue to provide a lot of transfer opportunities and unique and flexible models and options. And those are mentioned in the presentation. We'll be glad to talk to you some more about them. Finally, I'd like you to know that we continue to work on the Center for University Studies. We have Lakeland University as our primary partner, joined us in 2020, Concordia 2021. We'll continue to build on adding more partners as well. So this concludes my highlights, but there's a lot more to share, and Jonathan and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions by board members?
If I could, I'll just make a quick comment. It's absolutely wonderful to have seen the presentation that was shared with us. I think both of our presenters I've worked with in the past when I was at Milwaukee Public Schools, and just seeing how much has been developed, it's great. It's really fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Do not see any other hands or that, but I would also agree. Thank you for that presentation and providing the numbers and the projected growth. That looking ahead, that is something I think that we've talked about for a while, about continuing to grow that population of students. It creates a connection at MATC and sort of gives them that experience prior to getting here, and allows them then to continue. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have our health and safety update and COVID risk mitigation strategies. I will be calling on Krista Cotto for this tonight. Yeah, I guess over there.
It's all very, very strange.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, Chair Olson, members of the board. I am Krista Cotto. I'm the Assistant General Counsel, here to present our COVID update. I will be brief tonight. We don't have a presentation. Hopefully we can all go enjoy the nursing penny. They are having so much fun out there. So I'll start with just a point about our employee vaccination rate. We are currently at 87%, which is great news, because I think when we reported last month, we were at 83%. So we're up at about 4%. I'd like to attribute that to our compliance measures. So requiring people to submit their vaccination status is helping. With regard to our student vaccination rate, it's currently looking like we are unlikely to reach our 80% goal. We have determined, upon the recommendation of the health and safety team, that we are not going to require student vaccination at this time, given current concerns about enrollment and about our capacity internally to monitor what would be thousands of students, potentially unvaccinated students, in weekly testing. However, we are going to work, and when I say we, I mean the administration and the COVID response team and health and safety team, with faculty and Local 212 to discuss and recommend using about 15 or 20 minutes of the first class of spring semester to talk to our students about the COVID vaccine and their concerns about the vaccine, and encourage them to use that time to upload their vaccination status to our Viewpoint system, so we can get a better understanding of what the vaccine rate of our students are. With regard to the holidays, I know a lot of us are looking forward to traveling and family gatherings, and we know with that comes additional exposure to people outside of our household and potentially to COVID-19. So We will be sending out a communication prior to the holiday winter break, in which strongly encourages our employees to get COVID tested prior to returning to campus. And that would be 3 days prior to returning to campus. We're not closed this year, so it's a little, people will be on different schedules, but we are going to strongly encourage our employees and of course our students to do that before they're back on campus. And then finally, we are just completing the first week of our compliance measures and our mandated testing for our unvaccinated employees. This includes employees who have declined to receive the vaccine, employees who have medical or religious accommodations, and then employees who did not comply with our submission requirements. So it's probably going to take a couple of weeks in order for us to get real reportable data to you. That's mostly due to the fact that we're requiring employees to get tested by Wednesday. And then depending on where they get tested, there's different turnaround rates to receive the results to the test. Because if you recall, we're requiring PCR testing because it is the most accurate testing. So we're hoping that in the next couple of weeks, we'll have better data on the compliance rates. First week was a little bumpy, which, you know, when we talk to our other community partners, that is what they have experienced as well. But we're very hopeful by next month we'll be able to have, you know, real data to share about our compliance. So with that, I will conclude my report and take any questions.
Are there any questions? Not seeing any. Kristen, I do have questions. I know that DHS recently sent out a notification about now talking about antigen testing versus PCR testing that came directly from DHS. And I'm wondering what impact, if any, that has, and if Milwaukee Health Department has talked with post-secondary about that, because I know there's been a conversation about those health departments talking, I know specifically to K-12, about that difference between the two testing and what now is eligible to be that. Again, PCR is still being the most full and complete, but that announcement by them, I'm wondering what impact that may or would have in the future.
I will certainly talk to Josie and follow up on that. I don't know that there's been a specific communication to post-secondary institutions about that. You know, certainly I think if PCR remains the standard, that is what we will use. But if DHS is recommending or advising that K-12 can use antigen testing, then that's certainly something that we will bring to the health and safety team for consideration and recommendation.
I only say that because it opens up potential different options because of the length of time that it waits. You always have to consider that, whether it's employees away from work or students or whatever it is. And so I just curious. So don't need an immediate on that. We're heading into that. I was just curious more than anything on that. So thank you. Okay, I do not see any more questions from the group. So item 9 is any new business. Is there any new business?
May I raise an item?
Sure.
So I'm not sure if this isn't technically new business, but I'm hoping that maybe in a report next time, someone could address one of the items from comments from the public. The instructor who is going to be retiring made some comments that I've actually heard some of that echoed before. The welding instructor is someone who I used to take my students to her class when I was at Milwaukee Public Schools, and I know her and the hard work that she's done. And so I think it would be worth our while just to hear sort of a maybe update on the pathways implementation and how that's working with our staff or something. And I think that could be a part of anyone's report.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? If not, we will move on to future events, which I think most of these have been announced. And those of us who are here in person are hearing item A for sure in the hallway right now going on as they are all lining up for the nurses pinning ceremony, which starts in about 35 minutes here on campus. Then Thursday, the GED HSED graduation is happening, same location at 6 p.m. And then on Friday, across the street is the MATC winter commencement at 6 p.m. Board members, just a reminder that January 25th is the MATC district board meeting, downtown campus, location here, more information to be sent out. And there is the winter quarterly meeting, which is being held at Elkhart Lake on shortly after that board meeting, just a couple days later. So that information was sent out on that. If you are interested, please let Gwen know. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Director Mays, is there a second?
I'll
This is
second.
Director Foley. I second.
Okay, and we'll take a, according to that, I have Director Foley who had the second. All those who are in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody's opposed. So happy holidays to all of the staff and board members, and please